Well, here's our own raider of the lost dog, Spot the Wonder Dog, here to bark at the worst movies of the week.
Well, my dog this week is Dead and Buried, a hideously gruesome thriller in which a crazed mortician, Jack Albertson, can't stop with merely embalming people. He wants to make them live again in an East Coast seaport town named Potter's Bluff. The ads for this film say it'll take your breath away. No, I just think it'll make you look away, as we're forced to suffer through a scalp being peeled from a human head and a hypodermic needle stuck into the eyeball. Yuck. You can safely avoid seeing Dead and Buried.
I believe you. My dog this week is called Screamers, and it's like an anthology of ingredients from several different Hollywood garbage genres. Screamers is being advertised like a bloody horror film with a warning of, you'll actually see a man turned inside out. Well, be warned, you never do in this film. It's actually more of a bloody underwater adventure film about the lost continent of Atlantis. The movie stars Joseph Cotton as a mad scientist who's created a race of zombies who are half fish and half man. He's forced them to plunder the sunken continent of Atlantis and return all the gold to him. And in the movie's climax, the amphibians turn against the humans, while meanwhile, back at the lost continent, a volcano explodes and the hero is trapped inside a flooded chamber. It's absolutely remarkable how Screamers manages to take all that material and make it boring, but it does.
It was just awful. I saw it, and the worst scene in that picture is laughable. Barbara Bach feeds milk to all these men dressed up like lizards.
Right,
just
terrific.
Well, here's our furry little critic who always finds something wrong with the movie. Spot the Wonder Dog. Time for Dog of the Week, the week's worst movies.
Well, Gene, my dog this week is another one of those strongest man in town movies. It's called Bare Knuckles, and it stars Zach Kane as a citizen bounty hunter, Citizen Kane. His idea of a good time is to find some thug in an alley and beat him into a pulp before turning him over to the police. Zach Kane is a tough-looking dude who has a slight resemblance to Charles Bronson, and Bare Knuckles has more than a slight resemblance to Charles Bronson's own fistfight movie, Hard Times. The resemblance is especially obvious during the fight scenes in Bare Knuckles, which are endless and repetitive and have substandard Hollywood zilch-grade production values. That means every time somebody gets hit in the jaw, it sounds like a sound effects man is attacking a naugahyde sofa with a ping pong paddle. If anybody ever did really hit that hard, they wouldn't have bare knuckles, they'd have split knuckles.
Okay, well, my dog this week is a ridiculous thriller called It Came Without Warning. The It is an outer space alien that looks like that big creature that stepped off the mothership in Close Encounters of the Third Kind. The only difference is that this creature is real ugly, and it throws slimy green little frisbees with teeth in them into the human beings. Jack Palance catches a few in the chest and neck, and so do a bunch of other people. The only time this movie is fun is when that creature is on the screen, but unfortunately, it doesn't pop up until the film's very last reel. So it came without warning, all right, but unfortunately, it showed up way too late.
Here comes some movies that aren't so funny, because here's Spot the Wonder Dog leaping into the balcony to help us pick out the week's worst movies, the dogs of the week.
Well, my dog certainly isn't a laughing matter. It's Maniac, a disgusting horror show that forced me out of the theater after only 30 minutes. Maniac is a repulsive story of a berserk killer in New York. This is an extremely brutal film that thoroughly grossed me out, and what sent me out of the theater so early was the scene where we see a head hit by a shotgun blast and it explodes in slow motion. That came after a couple of throat slashings and a vicious strangulation. Maniac is making its slimy way into theaters all around the country, so be on the lookout for it and avoid it.
You know, sometimes that's a very valid reaction to just walk out on a film like that, even if you're a movie critic, because as a civilized person, there's no point in sitting there and watching that kind of stuff.
There was no point at which the film was going to redeem itself after that. It was a real gross-out show.
Sounds bad. My dog this week is probably not as bad as Maniac, but it's pretty bad. It's called Beyond Evil. Maybe it should be retitled Beyond Comprehension. It's a completely muddled, ridiculous mess that combines voodoo, haunted houses, ghosts, and faith healers into a story so confusing that even the characters are messed up. They talk about yesterday when what they mean was the day before yesterday in this movie. The movie stars John Saxon, who's just been appointed by our president as ambassador to Mexico. He co-stars with Linda Day George as a married couple who go to live on a tropical island. They move into a vast old manor house that island reputations say is haunted. Well, they should have listened to the natives. Linda Day George is possessed by the spirit of a woman who was murdered in the house, and then they try to bring in the faith healer to cure her. Now, this is one of those movies where here's how the heroine spends her day. First of all, she gets a knife wound that mysteriously heals. Then she gets eyes that turn green and shoot death rays at people. Then she has hallucinations about pagan rituals, and she still has dinner on the table when her husband comes home.
Okay. Well, now here come two authentic dogs of the week, because it's Spot the Wonder Dog, time for the week's worst movies, Dogs of the Week.
Well, Gene, my dog this week is Dirt. That's the title. And it looks like one of those TV commercials for one of those fast-talking drag strip ads. You know how they go. Sunday, Sunday, US 40 drag strip. See Arnie the Farmer Sedgwick in his $200 International Harvester with $4,000 tires. See men racing through the desert sand while breathing filtered air. See two brothers in a blood feud to see who can drive a four-wheel Jeep to the top of a muddy hill. Sunday, Sunday. See the film narrator, an old coot, drink beer while talking about the race. See Parnelli Jones wipe the grease off a wrench. See cars get stuck in the mud. In fact, see anything before you see this movie. And everything I mentioned is in the film.
Well, that's why I won't see it, okay? My dog is Demonoid, and would you believe this is the second movie this year I've seen about a disembodied hand that crawls around and strangles people. The hand in the film is the devil's hand, and it is resentful of greedy people who tried to steal ancient buried treasures. The entire film is a series of episodes with Samantha Eggar and Stuart Whitman being attacked by this wicked left hand. It all gets very silly and ultimately disappointing at the end when we never find out what happens to the hand. I have a theory, though. I'd like to think that the hand from Demonoid, the left hand, and the hand from that other thriller, called The Hand, they two got together, shook hands, and came out fighting. Well, now we go to some bad movies. It's Spot the Wonder Dog leaping into the balcony to remind us it's time for the Dogs of the Week.
Well, my dog this week is Blood Beach, and the monster in this movie is the biggest ripoff since the ghost in the invisible bikini. You hardly ever see the monster in Blood Beach because it's beneath the sand. All you see is one hapless victim after another getting sucked down into the sand by the underground monster while the cops try to figure out what in the world is happening. Blood Beach stars Burt Young as a police detective from Chicago named Lieutenant Royko. Guess he's inspired by the Chicago newspaper columnist Mike Royko. And every time another victim gets sucked down to a sandy death on the beach at Santa Monica, Royko says, "This would have never happened back home in Chicago." When the monster finally appears, it looks like a bloodthirsty Venus flytrap. Scientists say they want to study it, but Royko says they ought to blast the hell out of it. Well, that's the old Chicago spirit.
I saw the picture, too. I thought it looked like a mutant gladiola, and they only see it in the last 10 minutes.
Yeah,
a real ripoff.
Just a glimpse.
My dog this week is a kung fu laugh riot called Superpower. It's a film filled with dozens of unintended laughs while telling the story of a second-generation rivalry among a bunch of kung fu experts. The film opens with a 10-minute fight in which one kung fu master pummels the head, face, shoulders, arms, stomach, groin, and legs of another fighter. The victim finally lies groggy on the ground when a warlord supervising the fight yells, "Stop it, that's enough." It's nice, the guy's half dead. Like so many kung fu movies, Superpower is badly dubbed with American voices saying totally incongruous things. At one point, an Oriental man argues about whether he should attend a rival's dinner party. He speaks with great formality about the risk of offending his host if he doesn't attend versus the risk of insulting the memory of his father if he does attend. Just then, his Oriental wife speaks up in an American accent saying, "Come on, it's only a dinner party." That's Superpower, a very funny dog of the week. Well, look who's running through our balcony now. He's back from vacation. Spot the Wonder Dog to help us sniff out the week's worst movies, the Dogs of the Week.
Well, my dog this week is called Terror House. It tells the unappetizing story of a kindly old couple who take lonely young girls into their secluded mansion. They feed them 3 square meals a day. They fatten them up. They give them a great vacation. Then they kill them and eat them.
Yes.
You know, there's something fishy going on when Grandma mentions that one of the girls left suddenly in the middle of the night, and then, while everybody else is sitting down to dinner, the camera lingers on a long shot of the braised ribs.
Yeah.
Even weirder is the scene where the deranged grandson takes one of the girls down to the beach to do some fishing. He reels in a small shark, grabs the shark by the tail, beats its brains out on a log, jumps up and down on it, turns to the girl and says, "I think I love you."
I may have this one beat, though. My dog of the week is a kung fu nudie picture called Firecracker. It's about a buxom American woman who is a karate expert. She ventures to an island fortress in an effort to find her long-lost sister. What she finds instead is a lot of trouble at the hands of a heavy-duty drug dealer. The big gimmick in this typically trashy martial arts picture is a scene where the karate expert's brassiere pops open and she begins to do battle. Well, at least that took my eyes off the film's lackluster stunt work and dialogue that includes an Oriental thug who talks like a guy from Brooklyn. At one point, he asks the woman karate expert, "What's your purpose here?" Crazy.
Well, so much for the Dogs of the Week. Now let's take another look at the main movies on this show.